At Subway, start your day the flavorful way by adding new guacamole to your favorite breakfast sandwich. Perfectly made with a hint of jalapeno, our guacamole turns up the flavor to your breakfast. Try it today on a hot and toasty egg, white, and cheese. Subway, eat fresh.
The BS Report is a free-flowing conversation that occasionally touches on mature subjects. The BS Report. The BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Welcome to the BS Report. July 2nd, the day after the U.S. World Cup team was eliminated for 2014. There is hope for 2018. We're going to talk to a couple people today, but first off, my friend for as long as I think I had armpit hair, probably a little later than that. Rob Stone, how are you?
That's how I get introduced, with armpit hair.
Well, I probably had armpit hair for a few years before we met.
No, you definitely had. You might even have a hint of stubble, but you were certainly old enough to at least accept the beer.
Yeah. So what is your feeling today, the day after we got eliminated? Encouraged, disappointed, confused? How you feeling?
All those kind of hit. I wouldn't say confused because I feel good. We accomplished the goal, right? I mean, the goal was to get out of the group of death and play an extra game. We did that. That's mission accomplished, and we have to realize that. People forget what a challenge it is just to get to the World Cup, Bill. It's very true. The best countries in the world earn the right to play there, and then we made it to the Sweet 16. That's huge. That's huge. Look at the teams that moved on to the Final Eight. Outside of Costa Rica, you're looking at absolute world powers. We're not yet a world power. Folks, have that reality check. But we're growing. We're becoming a respected country. This is the term I've stumbled on. We don't have that fear factor with this yet, but we have that respect factor. I think people around the globe will talk to the United States, the players, what they represent, and their fan base as well, because that's a big part of it. And they have respect for us now, where in the past they would look at us and look beyond us. Now they respect us, but they don't fear us. I don't think they game plan around us, but they certainly look at us and say, let's watch out for this or that. But once we get that fear factor going, then we can start being in that top 8 conversation. But I don't think it's fair to consider us a top 8 country soccer-wise in the world right now. Top 16 now, yeah, I think that's well within our grasp, and it was clearly showed in Brazil this summer.
And the one thing about this team, they kept fighting. I don't think they took 5 minutes off in those 4 games. And even when it was 2-0, they came right back and scored and were kind of coming on in the bitter end. They seemed like they were better conditioned. I felt like the Belgians kind of wore down in the last 15 minutes, right?
Yeah, I agree with you. But you know what, also, Bill, they had that late 2-0 lead. I think they felt like we've broken this team. And I think it's natural to kind of kick back and defend and just secure that lead, get on to the next round, keep healthy, conserve that energy. And the U.S. on the flip side said, it's all or nothing at this point. Let's throw a teenager onto the field and get him a couple minutes so he can put this on his resume and we can say it was a worthwhile selection. What does Julian Green do? Bam, with a wonderful touch, finishes a goal, giving us all some hope for 4 years down the road in Russia. Should the U.S. qualify again, that's far from a given, but it should be expected. So I think a lot of positives to take away, but also still recurring questions about where U.S. soccer goes from here. How much did we grow? Are we a better country now than we were, say, 4 years ago or even 4 months ago?
So what's your biggest, you say recurring questions, what's the biggest question you have right now?
Where do we go from here? How many of these guys are going to be back in 2018? Is Clint Dempsey, Jermaine Jones, Tim Howard, how impactful will they be going forward? Do we have enough youth coming up, ideally from America, from Major League Soccer, to supplant these guys, to push these guys, to make us more of a fear-based team? I want to see some Americans attacking players and going after guys in one-to-one situations. I want to see this sport continue to grow here. I want to see the water cooler conversations continue more than just for 1 month every 4 years. And I think we're getting to that point. Tournaments like the Gold Cup, just kind of the regional World Cup, if you will, are generating more and more excitement here in the States. And we've got another edition coming next summer. The Women's World Cup is next summer, Bill. In Canada, the U.S. women's team is the number 1 ranked team in the world. So that conversation, to a point, will certainly continue. So I think it's positive, but there's obviously some things that need to be strengthened. And it's easy to say things need to be strengthened. It's really hard, to find those solutions.
The Women's World Cup, I think, is going to be absolutely massively gigantic. It's in Toronto. It's on. So it's
actually, it's not in Toronto. Believe it or not, Toronto. So the best city, arguably city in Canada, could not host. Vancouver is going to be kind of the home base, and I agree with you. It's a tournament that's expanded teams for better or for worse. But we've seen it this summer how our country loves to find something to wrap that flag around, and it's so hard in this day and age. More times than not, we rally as a country through tragedy, and I'm tired of that. I love the fact that people just embraced this country and cheered for our country, and just absolute patriotism. And whether you know the sport or just new to it, kind of latched onto it. I was at a backwoods bar in North Carolina yesterday, packed, watching this game, and I had this old guy next to me, Bill. I mean, he looked like that stereotypical backwoods North Carolina guy, long, whitish hair, a beard, kind of stumbling around with that Walmart outfit on, and I thought the guy was just looking for another drink, and instead he starts talking soccer to me with a hardcore Carolina accent. My grandson plays soccer in Washington, and the guy was transfixed by it, and I'm like, wow, we've reached this fellow. We've reached this guy, right? Yeah. And it gives me great hope that we can reach so many more, and we are, and it's showing. I mean, look at the viewership numbers for ESPN and ABC. Just wonderful, off the charts, by millions more compared to 4 years ago, and hopefully, we at Fox will be able to continue that in 4 years in Russia.
So the Women's World Cup is now in Vancouver?
Well, that's kind of one of the main cities. It's spread across the country as well, but Vancouver is kind of the Rio de Janeiro.
Oh, I got it. Okay. Well, that's better for me. That's closer to LA. I'm going. I'm taking my daughter. I'm going to the Women's World Cup.
Well, come on. You can stay with me. I'm going to try and rent a house for the Stone clan, and we can have all of our minions intermingle.
I don't want to stay with you. You have 4 kids. Why would I want to stay with you? I want to get away from kids.
They're
I want to be in a nice hotel.
You hardly know they're there. They're just like the DNA of my wife and I. It's all quiet and sublime.
So, the 2015.
Have I told you how many bars I've taken my kids to this World Cup, by the way? My kids now, as a serious question, go, Dad, what bar are we going to? And I'm like, I doing a good job as a parent, or am I completely failing them?
No, get them in early. Get them in early. Yeah. Get them used to the smell of bars and the people in them. It's great. You're doing God's work. So,
we went to a brewery. We went to a brewery yesterday, this brewery bar, and my son was like, man, it smells in here, Dad. And then within 10 seconds, he said, can we teach everybody in here the I believe that we will win chant? And I'm like, I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right as a dad right now.
That's a good one. So in Vancouver and everywhere else in Canada, that 2015 team, you're going to have Abby Wambach, her 4th World Cup, never won it somehow. I think people feel like she's won it, but she hasn't. We haven't won since 99.
All those Olympic gold medals kind of get confused with the World Cup titles. The gold medal means something for women's soccer. For men's soccer, obviously it's a great achievement, but it doesn't parlay into World Cup success.
Right. So you have her. You have Alex Morgan is going to be blown out as a megastar.
Oh my gosh.
She'll be on every magazine for 6 months.
Yeah. And then who knows what the hell is going to be going on with Hope Solo? What she's gotten her mixed up with lately. Is she still going to be on the team or not? One of, if not the premier goalkeeper in the women's game, but having some off the field issues as well. There's a lot of talking points already, but they still have to qualify. There's no reason to think they shouldn't qualify, and that'll happen later this fall. But really getting excited, kind of carrying on this men's World Cup energy and enthusiasm into the women's game.
I agree, and we learned a few things these past 2 weeks. One, the whole social media era, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube clips, all that stuff really helps soccer, especially because it's 2 hours. And, it's unlike some other sports where you don't know if it's dragging on for 4 hours, 4.5, or you don't know when the game's going to end, all that thing. This is like, all right, this game starts here and it's going to end there, and there might be extra time, which is half hour. So everything makes sense in your head. And people like getting together and rooting for the same team, which doesn't really happen as much anymore because you have all these transplants that are in different cities. And now you see like in California, there's, the Boston bar and there's the Chicago bar, things like that. But it's fun to be in a bar that's gigantic. The Grantland staff, we watched at Tom's Urban and LA Live yesterday, and just everybody there is just decked out and ready to roll and rooting for the same team, which was so much fun. And,
it's like 4th of July whenever they're playing, right? There's just another great reason to maybe gather together and drop some things back and wear red, white, and blue and be silly and loud. And I think it's fabulous. It's just one of the best sporting environments you can attach yourself to as a human being.
Right. And we don't really have a national team for anything else. You
Correct.
know, like,
Totally agree.
we have it in basketball. But those guys, if we're the favorites and we're just, we're so familiar with those guys as it is. With the soccer thing, we're the underdogs, which I really like. Like the fact that we almost won that game yesterday and really should have if Wando had finished the kick. Do you think he should have made that kick? They never showed a great replay of it.
Yeah, my initial reaction watching it live was like everybody else, screaming and hands up and oh no. You watched a couple of the replays, some of the things I considered are, I'm sure Wando feels right now I should have put it away. And I'm sure he would probably 80 to 90% of the time. But you have one of the best keepers in the world hurling himself at you, right, at your ankles. The ball came kind of unexpectedly on a beautiful side header, and it took a little skip as well as it entered him. More times than not, these guys finish it, but there's a lot of factors happening in just about half of a second that went into that, and that play unfortunately is gonna haunt him for a long, long time. But realistically, that as great as that goal would have been, the result was deserved. Belgium deserved to move on. I still see Belgium as a legit threat to win the Cup, not just move on to the quarterfinals and be content. They can push Argentina, and Argentina has been pushed throughout this tournament. And I think one of the big things that's going to be interesting to me, Bill, is there was all this national pride and this patriotism, and everybody gathering for the U.S. games. I hope, and I think it's going to continue through the rest of the World Cup. Let's not forget, it's still quarter semifinals to go, and I think these new American fans are still going to want to watch and learn more about some of these other teams and appreciate why they are, quote unquote, better than us at this moment. It's no time to turn off the TV and walk away from the World Cup. We've still got a great, great run to go.
I was told by a high-ranking ESPN executive that had it been Argentina-U.S. on Saturday, it would have gotten somewhere between 35 and 40 million viewers, which is like Super Bowl level.
I know, and that's what hurts me, and I've been thinking about that probably for the last 5 days of just if we can get by Belgium, because no disrespect to Belgium, not sexy, right? There's very little about Belgium that just says sexy to you. You may not know a lot of their players, and they don't have this great soccer history, but a quarterfinal showdown right around 4th of July with Argentina and the guy, Lionel Messi, that's been all over your TV with ads and endorsements, and every kid here knows, oh my goodness, the hype, the setup, the conversation that would have gone on from now up until that game, even a day or two after it, would have been mammoth publicity for U.S. soccer, and that part stings. But the reality is we at least were able to continue that conversation through the first game of the knockout stage.
Yeah. What would the score have been yesterday with your average world-class goalie and not Tim Howard having an outer-body experience?
I mean, Tim Howard, kind of Jim Craig-esque, right? You go back to Lake Placid and just riding that hot American keeper and hanging on and turning away shot after shot. What he did, though, Simbo, doesn't surprise me. I mean, these are things I've come to expect and love in Tim Howard. I've been fortunate enough to be around American soccer circles for a long time, and I covered Tim youngster playing in Major League Soccer with the then Metro Stars. I was in the locker room with the U.S. national team when it was announced that Manchester United had signed him. I mean, Manchester United signing an American player. The history of it, I still get goosebumps. I mean, I gave a hardcore man hug. I was so proud of him and what he achieved for American soccer. And, I shudder to think where this national team would have been, not just yesterday, not through the course of the World Cup, but for years without some of the saves and the attitude and what Tim Howard has brought to this program. And the good thing about that position in soccer is you're not done at 32 or 33 or 34. You can keep on playing and keep on and excelling at a high level. That's going to be one of the talking points over the course of World Cup qualification for Russia in 2018 is Tim Howard still going to be with the team? Is he still going to be the number one? Is he going to be supplanted by a Brad Guzan or something? But what he did yesterday earned raves, not just domestic, but internationally.
And I'm all for PEDs if that can keep him going for 2018. Let's get him with some of the best illegal doctors we can find.
Get him some nice cow blood from Germany. Absolutely.
Yeah. Let's whatever's going on in Germany. Let's get him there. The Miami Biogenesis Clinic. I think we should investigate whatever we need to do.
How have you and I not collaborated together to start up one of these type clinics? Look, I'm looking to retire. I know you can kick back on your Grantland cash these days and live a nice little life with Carrie and the kids, but the Stone Clan, me and my 4 minions, man, we need a little extra cushion, my friend.
Well, when does Fox officially get? So Fox gets the World Cup in 2018. What else do you have as a network?
As soon as Brazil is over, the World Cup rights turn to Fox, and it starts with the Women's Cup next summer. We also have the next 2 Men's World Cup, Gold Cup coverage coming your way next summer. I mean, next summer, consider this. And look, my history with ESPN. Love the company. So grateful for what they've done to me and for the. But consider next year on Fox, if I can toot our horn for a moment. Champions League, UEFA League, Women's World Cup. We got the Gold Cup next summer, followed right by the Guinness International Champions Cup, which we have this summer as well. I mean, Real Madrid, Manchester City, Manchester United coming to the States to play in a tournament that is preseason in name only, because we saw last year these clubs, they rolled out the stars. Ronaldo got a lot of playing time, and he went after it. He wasn't kind of going preseason-esque, if you will. These guys were fighting for a trophy, and it turned out to be a really fun tournament. So, and I think the other conversation is MLS comes back to Fox, and this wonderful partnership now with Fox and ESPN to further the American game. With what we're doing with the national teams and Major League Soccer and this coverage kind of hand in hand and literally handing it from one network to the other to continue Major League Soccer coverage on Sundays starting next season. It's just a wonderful collaboration between two companies I'm really, really proud to say that I have on my resume.
And also, it'll be interesting to see like some of these young guys that were on the team. And
who impressed you? I loved watching Yedlin come off the bench yesterday and being fearless from that right fullback position and taking on Belgian players. And it's guys like him that give me some hope. And obviously that Julian Green goal. It'll be interesting to see how his career goes over the course of the next 4 years, because we've seen Bill, we've seen some young Americans flame, and we have to be careful to protect that, but also to nurture and let them go.
Well, Yedlin was a game changer every time he came in. He was just so freaking fast. And it made me think, like, the one advantage we didn't have a lot of advantages, especially against a team like Belgium, but the one advantage I thought we had was the speed on the outside. Yeah. And that's something that it seems like we have more of those guys coming. And, you think 4 years from now, like, that's going to be our big advantage, just being so fast.
Fast. At a minimum, you kind of expect that from America. You would think at a minimum I could get 10 guys out there that are going to haul tail and are going to affect the play. Whether that's the moves, we're going to work on that, right? But at a minimum, I want you in fifth gear at all times, causing chaos with the opposition. Yeah, that's the stuff that excites me. If I'm looking for one thing for American soccer to grow on the next 4 years, is I want to see more development of attack-minded players, of guys trapping the ball, looking at their defender and saying, you know what, dude, I'm taking you on. You may stop me 3 out of 5 times, but those 2 times I beat you are going to be game changers. And I want more of those guys like Clint Dempsey who can do it, and Yedlin. And I know we've got a lot of guys coming up through the ranks. There's some good young youth talent out there that we're going to be hearing more and more about as the Olympic cycle builds up. They get more playing time in Major League Soccer and their European clubs. So the future is certainly bright, but there's still a lot of question marks around it as well.
Yeah, we need at least 2 1v1 guys in the middle, because I think we're going to have the speed on the outside. And you watch these cup teams, and the best ones have 4 or 5 guys who are just dangerous offensively. And we didn't really have anybody. So that's, it's not just that they had all the shots yesterday. It was the fact that we couldn't hold the ball. That's why they had all the shots. When you can't hold the ball, it's trouble. Your 20 minutes are up, Rob Stone.
Oh, it goes by so fast when I'm talking with you.
Yeah, that's it. We'll call you next week, though, as we head toward the final.
Love it,
All
brother.
right.
Always a pleasure.
Say hi to the Stoner clan. Say hi to your DNA. I'll talk to you next week.
I will.
All right, take care. All right, we're going to go to Bill Barnwell and Chris Ryan next from Grantland. But before we do, a word from our friends at Subway.
Thanks, Bill. You the man. Now that you're stocked up on witty sports and pop culture insights, it's time to head to Subway because they're bringing big barbecue flavor this summer. The tender Applewood pulled pork is slow cooked to smoky perfection. And with a sweet and rich barbecue sauce, this is a clutch double play you don't want to miss. The Subway Applewood pulled pork. It's summer's gotta have it foot long.
All right, from Grantland, our football writer and our football writer, Bill Barnwell. How are you?
Kind of sad, but I'm getting over it. I'm not disappointed, but I'm a little sad.
Just had Rob Stone on, and he was talking about what 2018 might look like and where this team is headed. I know you've put a ton of thought into this. What do you think?
It's tough because I went back and looked at the 2010 team, and there's a 23-man roster. 6 guys from that team were here in 2014. So 17 guys didn't make the roster in 2018. It's really tough to imagine because, Jurgen Klinsmann seems like somebody who's really dependent upon young players. He really loves bringing guys from out of nowhere kind of into the national team fold. And a lot of those guys still have to develop,
Yeah. He seems like he likes young guys with a ton of energy is where he's headed mentally.
Right. He's all about fitness, it seems like, which I think is kind of one of the reasons why he didn't bring Landon Donovan on this team. I think he wanted to sort of have guys who he knew were going to be able to run for 90 minutes if he started them. And pretty much outside of the injuries, everybody did.
Yeah, it did seem like we had more steam at the end of these games, especially yesterday. I felt like Belgium wore out in the last 15. Maybe Stoner said they relaxed a little probably because they're up 2-0, but it did feel like from a conditioning standpoint, our guys were still flying around at the end of that game, which was relatively encouraging.
Even at the end of the first 90 minutes, it kind of seemed like, we created our best chance of the match with Chris Wondolowski. It kind of seemed like we were doing better as we got to the final 5 minutes of the match. And I think that does come down to sort of the energy that we had and the fitness levels we had. And that was definitely comforting. It's a skill that we may have that other teams don't have to the same extent,
What were your expectations coming into the Cup?
I thought we were going to lose in the group, maybe come away with a couple draws if we were lucky. Ghana had just been better than us twice at the World Cup, and they had so many players who were playing at a high level. I was thrilled that we got out of the group, and from there it was kind of a free roll. I wasn't I didn't feel the same pressure for the Belgian match that I felt for the Germany match, just because I thought, okay, we exceeded expectations. From this point forward, I don't care. If we play well, it's great, but let's just not get blown out.
We were exchanging some emails last night, and you were worried about, that you correctly pointed out that the times of these games were very favorable for the audiences. And in 2018 from Russia, the times are not going to be as favorable. So do you feel like this was the window to really get people, because in 4 years it might not be the window?
Well, let me use both of our favorite word here, Bill. Let's use the word momentum when it comes to building from what we did here in 2014. We know that in Russia, the games are going to be at 5 a.m., 6 a.m., 7 a.m. on the East Coast, 2, 3, 4 on the West Coast. That's just not optimal. So I think knowing that, and then the same thing, it will be the same case in Qatar if Qatar keeps the World Cup in 2022. For us, it's FIFA. I mean, they gave them the World Cup in the first place. Like in terms of crazy things that happen.
We're going to that cup in the United States in 2022. Mark it down.
I certainly hope so. But at least 2018, we know for sure it's going to be in Russia. It's going to be at terrible times. We can't control that. What the U.S. can control is trying to make the things between 2014 and 2018 into realistically exciting events. I mean, there are going to be 6 World Cup qualifiers. There's going to be the Gold Cup twice. They need to turn those things into the moments where we have 75,000 American fans at a stadium cheering us on against Mexico. We need to have those sort of grand moments where the nation does stop again, even if it's just for a day, to really come together and support this team. Because I think we saw that can certainly happen when everything goes right. We have a game on the weekends. We have a game at a time where people can watch. They're going to go watch now.
And more importantly, they're going to this cup, they were watching with their kids. And those kids are now going to, when they start playing sports at a much more competitive level, are going to be like, I want to play in the team that had everybody wearing flags, and like that might happen. Who the hell knows?
For sure. I mean, that's definitely something that might not have been the case to the same extent even 10 years ago.
Right. And then on top of it, you have the football concussions, and I don't think football is choosing from the same talent pool that it was 15 years ago with kids under 13. And some of those kids now might drift towards soccer, and we might start getting some of those athletes. Like that number 9 that came in for Belgium, who's
Lukaku.
from Everton, who scored the second goal. But just to bring a guy like that off the bench, just a freaking athlete with size, that's the thing we're missing.
For sure. I mean, we have a guy like that in Josie Altidore who, when he's playing at his level, can be a phenomenal game-changing athlete, but we have one Josie Altidore.
Right.
Belgium has Romelu Lukaku coming off the bench. They had Divock Origi, who was very good as a starter for this game, and they have Christian Benteke, who was their starter during qualifying, who got hurt. They have 3 or 4 of those guys at striker, and they have a bunch of great athletes at midfield. They have Fellaini, the guy who looks like he was 7 feet tall with the at the drive-in afro. Yeah. They have athletes who are not only great athletes, but great soccer players as well. We could use certainly more athletes who are of that caliber.
Yeah, that's everybody's favorite conversation in the World Cup, is to imagine the athletes we have in football and basketball and baseball and what they would look like on a soccer field. So we don't have to do that now, but I do think like we have the speed on the outside, but you watch the Cup and just like every team has 5 guys that scare the living out of you, and we don't really have any of those guys. I guess Josie would have counted, but he lasted 20 minutes, but I don't think we can truly get to that top 8, which is where you really need to be, until we have some of those guys. And that's how Belgium ends up with 36 shots or whatever the final number was.
Right. I mean, we have to, you can kind of go about it different ways. It's either are we going to have great athletes, or are we going to have great creative players? And to me, I think it's easier for us to find great athletes in America than it is for us to find those sort of Clint Dempsey freak prospects that are, try stuff that no one else is willing to try. I mean, Clint Dempsey is someone who didn't develop through the national team system, who kind of came out of nowhere, was a 5th overall pick in the MLS draft, really didn't go through the sort of youth processes that a lot of the players went through. I mean, we're not good at developing those kind of players. We are pretty good at taking athletes, someone like a Josie Altidore, and giving them the skills they need to succeed. So I think we can't create 5 Clint Dempseys. We can probably create 5 Josie Altidores if we get the athletes in the system.
The only person who loves second-guessing coaches more than me is you. You even have a column called Thank You for Not Coaching. Give me like your top 3 problems that you had with Klinsmann during this tournament.
Okay, I think the first one is the Landon Donovan thing. And we talked about it earlier. I mean, it's the fitness thing. I think it's him sending a message to the team saying, if you're not going to be training at a high level, if you're not going to be this guy who is, if you're going to take time off during the World Cup cycle, if you're not playing at your highest level, I'm not going to take you to the tournament. I think he was kind of a scapegoat. But then again, I can understand why Klinsmann did that. And I think, we would have been better with Donovan there, but it wasn't like he held us back from not being able to advance. Belgium was still the better team, even with Landon Donovan there.
Right.
I think altogether, I think Klinsmann did a good job with what he had. He definitely got a lot out of players who really aren't considered to be world-class players. I mean, look at that team. We had Chris Wondolowski, who's played for the San Jose Earthquakes his entire career. Cal Beckerman, who started with the Miami Fusion, who don't even exist anymore. He plays for, he's playing in Salt Lake. I mean, we have guys who aren't world-class players, certainly, and they're up against the best players in the world for Germany, Portugal, and Belgium. These are, they have guys on those teams who are worth more in the transfer market than our entire U.S. team combined, 123.
Right.
So I think he did a good job of playing a defensive sound system. Obviously, you could have said maybe more DeAndre Yedlin, maybe you move Johnson to the other flank, maybe you take Beasley out perhaps. Jeff Cameron had a bad tournament, never really found his role. Michael Bradley, we disagree on Bradley, I think, to some extent. Bradley was sort of the best option that we might have had, but he was still playing out of position. And maybe, a more tactically astute coach could have changed our formation on the fly and done some stuff to kind of rebuild the team after the Josie injury. I don't know that Klinsmann is that guy, but I think given what he had to work with, he did a pretty good job.
Yeah, I thought speed on the outside was the key to any chance we had in these games, and it didn't seem like he totally grasped that. But yeah, I emailed you that I thought Michael Bradley was the Matt Schaub of the U.S. team. And I watched.
So harsh.
Well, listen, it's I get fired up. It's our country. I get irrational. But we were watching the game yesterday, the whole Grantland staff, and I told that to Mays, and Mays, it looked like I killed his dog when I said that. He's like, "That's so mean. He's so not Matt Schaub." And I was like, "Yeah, but the fundamental thing of like you can only go so far with this guy." Mm-hmm. That's the Matt Schaub. Like Matt Schaub, Houston fans the whole time deep down knew you were never winning a Super Bowl with Matt Schaub. And that's kind of how I feel about Michael Bradley. The thing is, though, like he is amazing with how much ground he covers during a game and his ability to just sprint at all times like he just did an 8-ball.
Yeah. He has like the permanent turbo button. Like he doesn't
he really does.
Run out of turbo. And that's definitely, you need a guy like that on your team. He definitely has a role to play on the U.S. team. But the problem is he's not the kind of player where he's going to be dribbling past guys in tight quarters and making short passes and unlocking guys. He's someone who can read the whole field, make those medium to long passes, make intelligent decisions, and track back on defense. But we were stuck with him playing in a role where he couldn't be that guy.
Right. We were basically asking him to be LeBron James.
Yes.
And run the entire 2014 Miami Heat offense, and he's not that kind of guy.
Yeah, and it's funny how Matt Schaub has become like, that's generally one of the worst things you could call a person. Like if you were like calling someone.
Poor Matt Schaub.
Yeah, if you were calling someone like Donald Sterling, that's a little bit worse, but it's not, it's still like, it's in the same ballpark, which is not right, but it's right somehow.
He's the go-to example of the guy who's just good enough to raise your hopes, but not good enough to actually fulfill them until somebody else passes him.
But I'll tell you what, in 4 years, are you not going to be excited about the Michael Bradley redemption story when he scores a winning goal to put us through the next round?
How old is he going to be in 4 years?
He's going to be, I think, 30. He's still going to be in the running for a reasonable spot. Clint Dempsey is the one where I kind of worry because he's already 31, and it's going to be very tough for a 35-year-old, attacking player to make it to the World Cup.
I told Stoner before you came on, I'm all for examining the PD circles for Tim Howard and Dempsey and whoever else. Like we need to use our science for good, for beating other countries. We got to get them involved with the German doctors, the Miami biogenesis, all that stuff. Let's get it going.
USA.
Tim Howard, we need him at age 39 in 4 years.
I mean, it's kind of incredible that the U.S. now, for whatever weaknesses we have, we don't have a lot of creative players. We're not necessarily tactically astute as a team. We've produced 3 or 4 world-class keepers in a row. Casey Keller was very good. Brad Friedel was one of the best keepers in the world at his peak. And Tim Howard is a player of that caliber as well. I mean, maybe he's not the best keeper on the planet, but he certainly looked like it yesterday. And Brad Guzan, the backup, is very good. He's definitely one of the better keepers in England in the Premier League. So if we could do that with creative players, that'd be great. But it's definitely been kind of impressive that we've been able to get 3 or 4 players who would get into most of the teams on the planet as far as the quality of the goalkeeping goes.
So Yedlin is in the MLS. My friend Jay emailed me that his base salary is $80,000 with the guaranteed compensation amount of $92,000, and then he followed that by saying bye-bye. So he goes abroad, I'm guessing.
Yes, Yedlin, of course.
At age 20.
Yeah, I mean, maybe not right after this World Cup, but certainly if you're a team where you see what he did as far as running at people, like he just did not. He was not scared of anything.
I loved it.
It was so good. It was so exciting to see. And it's kind of the same thing you saw at a different position when Landon Donovan and DeMarcus Beasley came through the system. And they were 19 and 20, and they came out for that World Cup in 2002. And they were running at German players, and they didn't care because, why would you – what's going to stop you? I mean, you've played so well at a youth level. You shouldn't even be at the World Cup in the first place if you're 20. I mean, I don't remember what I was doing at 20, but it was not competing at the World Cup, that's for sure. You have nothing. You shouldn't be fearing anything, and it was really cool to see them kind of succeed. And it's great to see Yedlin and Julian Green play big roles. So I'm hopeful, but there's still a lot more guys to come to kind of follow those guys up for sure.
Yeah, we have him. What about Chris Ryan was talking about Gideon Zelalem?
I think Gideon Zelalem is a 17-year-old player in the Arsenal youth team who has not even committed to playing for the United States yet.
Right.
It's like a prayer of a prayer of a prayer.
We need him.
He might be really great. And that's one of the cool things about soccer is, like, there's still so much unknown. Like in the NFL, when I write about the NFL draft, we've seen those players playing in college football for 4 years. Like Julian Green, most people hadn't even seen him, including me, before he came on the U.S. national team. And he's a total unknown. And he scores an incredible goal with his first touch in the World Cup. That's so exciting. That's something that, you don't see unknown in other sports anywhere near as much. And to have that in soccer with the national team is pretty exciting.
Yeah, we don't have a lot of guys who score what I would call the wow goals.
Yes.
And that was a wow goal. And really, if Wando had scored on that play with 2 minutes left, which would have been the all-time pull the game out of your ass victory in the history of soccer, it would have had to have been a wow goal, I feel like, with that guy coming right at him. Great keeper.
Yeah.
Not a lot of angle on the shot,
Right. I don't fault Wondolowski for missing. And it was, by the way, I know Ian Dark, who I don't want to say anything bad about Ian Dark. Ian Dark should do Monday Night Football next year, by the way. He should do that week great. 1. He should do that second game on Monday Night Football in week 1. That would be incredible. But Ian Dark said it immediately afterwards. He said it was offsides. And then he said, it might have been a goal kick. I went back and watched on the basically on the All-22 cam on ESPN, and it was it was not a offsides whatsoever. It was a reasonable shot. I mean, but I can understand Wando missing it. It was definitely tough. Courtois was coming out. It would have been an incredible finish, even though it was so close to the goal. But yeah, I mean, we don't have a lot of wild players.
Suarez scores on that every time.
Right, but we don't have Suarez.
We don't have Suarez.
We have Julian Green, who has a 2% chance of turning into Luis Suarez, but he might look like Luis Suarez for one kick. And that's exactly what happened in the 16th minute, 112th minute, whatever.
Right.
Julian Green's awesome.
And we also have Darlington Nagbe on Portland, who's from Liberia, but he has an American background. By 2015, he might be here. He married an American, hopes to receive U.S. citizenship next year. Let's add him to the list.
The worst part is that we lost a player. We had Giuseppe Rossi, who grew up in New Jersey. And if you look at him, he looks like he would be on the Jersey Shore if he was not playing professional soccer in Italy. He went to go play for the Italian national team. I mean, we had a guy like that, and we lost him. Like, Italy should not be taking players from us. We should be taking players from Italy.
Yeah, how dare they?
Very frustrating.
We're going to get to Chris Ryan, but I did want to mention you. Not only did you write for our World Cup postmortem today on Grantland, but you launched the pitching championship belt.
Best Pitcher Alive championship belt. So excited. Which
is so long of a column that even I thought it was long. I can't wait to read it. Was it like 10,000 words?
It is the longest thing I've ever filed for Grantland, which it should tell you how long it is. It might be.
I'm finally wearing off on you. And then, so pitching championship belt, part 1, where you go through basically the entire 20th century and the early part of the 21st century and try to figure out who the best pitcher for that season was through every season.
Right. Basically, like if you were at the end of a year and you wanted to pick who the best pitcher alive was, even if he wasn't the best pitcher for that season itself, like what would be a good example? If Scott Kazmir wins the AL Cy Young this year, you would still pick Clayton Kershaw over Scott Kazmir in a heartbeat. You'd still pick not Justin Verlander, but maybe Max Scherzer would still be a better pitcher than
Somebody's got to take the belt. I just did this with the action movie stars. You can't just because you made a hit movie, you can't grab the belt. It's more of an attitude and a general perception of who matters the most.
Right. So I did that for every year going back to 1900. First half is up today. I think the final 30 years or 20 years are up tomorrow. But 10,000 words.
Yeah, I'm excited to read it. All right, Bill Barnwell. And then football season is I was at a newsstand in L.A. yesterday, and I saw the Fantasy Football magazine, so I know it's coming.
Hope you're ready for
it's looming.
NFL Trade Value version 4 coming up very soon.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. When's that? Like 3 weeks?
3 weeks. Terrifying.
More importantly, you're coming to L.A. for the annual Bill Barnwell tells us what his plans are for the football season meeting, which is one of my favorite Grantland office days.
One of the few Grantland meetings we should actually televise and put on the Grantland network.
It's not a bad idea. You just hold court for an hour. It's like watching a senator at some sort of Washington meeting. It's great. Bill Barnwell, talk to you soon. Read his column today on Grantland, and I will see you in a couple weeks.
Thanks, buddy.
Last but not least, editor of The Triangle on Grantland, biggest soccer fan I know, somebody who was so traumatized after yesterday's game, he just walked up to his office, grabbed his stuff, held 2 middle fingers in the air, and walked out without saying goodbye to everybody. Chris Ryan, how are you?
That was actually because I knew Ben Gordon was going to get 2 years and $9 million.
What? When did that happen?
While you were recording.
From who?
Orlando.
Oh, that's a horrible contract.
But I felt it coming, so that's what the middle fingers were about.
I was upset because the Celtics signed Avery Bradley today for $32 million, which in a vacuum is fine, but I'm not positive he can hold up physically for 2 months, much less 4 years.
Well, luckily you just drafted Marcus Smart to play with Rondo.
I don't like paying guys who aren't all-stars $8 to $10 million a year. It makes me nervous. But
let's talk USMNT though.
Yeah, so I deliberately saved the 2018 stuff for you. We touched on it a little bit with Rob Stone, a little bit with Bill Barnwell, but you and I, we were emailing last night about the 2018 team and some of these guys that are coming on. And I don't know if we've totally been in this position before where we have guys that we can now follow for in the MLS or abroad or whatever, but I do feel like there's an identity that's beginning to form. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think that you and Bill were just talking about it, but that hyper athletic speed mixed with some like more cultured finishing and more cultured technical ability is really. I always sound like Ian Dark when I talk about soccer, like not intentionally, but like I always start using words that I don't usually use about sports. But I think we're going to be like a more athletic and more creative team in 2018 for sure.
So that team will be based on young legs, speed, and then hopefully somebody in the middle who can kind of be the chess master with all the different pieces that are flying around at 25 miles an hour.
I would imagine you're going to see Bradley move back to his sort of original deep lying position. I know Bill was just talking about that, but Michael in the middle with somebody else sort of orchestrating things while he's got these guys flying around him, and hopefully we have some striking options up front is what I would imagine Klinsmann is trying to build towards 2018.
So who can we steal from a country that isn't really a U.S. citizen yet? Can't we just go get somebody? Can't we use Dan Gilbert? Gilbert's money for good?
I would love to go make an appeal to like guys like Samir Nasri who got like left off of their French team. Just be like, you got to have an American uncle somewhere, you know? Like
this guy, can't they? All these guys in the different sports, like Jerry Jones and Dan Gilbert, who have become these polarizing owners who whatever, like, can't they use their money for good?
I know. Just to do the like incredible genealogy search on whether Messi has like ever gone to Disney World and whether that constitutes being able to have a U.S. passport.
He has a sixth cousin who grew up in I don't know, Pennsylvania.
It's Bobby Messi from Pennsylvania.
You're related to this guy. Come on in. Here's $130 million. So do you feel like we overachieved, underachieved, or properly achieved in this World Cup?
I think given the group we were in and if we had like a healthy Ronaldo, I think you could consider getting out of that group an overachievement. I think that otherwise this is about where we should be given the talent pool we have to draw from and where we are in terms of Klinsmann's sort of rebuilding plan and his vision for the team. I think the interesting thing and I was talking about this last night with some of the guys who wrote in the Pass and Move today about this idea that this is it for scrappy underdog America. We're Portugal now. Like we're going to be in that mid-tier that's like just knocking on the door, I think. And even if that's not the case for talent, that's going to be the case for perception. You know, one of the cool things yesterday was seeing a lot of the English and European soccer writers that I follow on Twitter absolutely losing it for this team, just like going all in. And I think we really captured the imaginations of a lot of people. I think there are going to be expectations, not only in 2018, but even in the cups like coming up that we'll be participating in. And I think that's going to be the biggest challenge is to not only go to the big boy table, but to act like you belong there.
What was your biggest concern coming out of this World Cup?
Can't keep the ball. Can't keep the ball. That's why we lost.
Mine too.
I mean, if we had kept the ball, if we were able to stop the bleeding at all in some of those earlier parts of that Belgium game, I really feel like because when Wando came on, I felt like we looked really, really good. That even though part of it was out of circumstances to bring Yedlin on, but that Yedlin-Wando look was really nice because it allowed Dempsey to drop deeper, and it just felt like that's what the team should have looked like. That's what we were supposed to look like with Altidore, with that focal point up front and guys running around him. And I just felt like we were really confusing the Belgium team. And if we could hold the ball, we would have had a shot there.
I agree. Does Josie make any sort of difference?
I think so. I think that Josie serves a huge function for the offense that Klinsman runs out there, where you're having guys running off of him, and we just didn't have that. Clint can't do that. Yesterday
we were at Tom's Urban at LA Live, and it was packed with people, and Jacoby had a flag, which I Instagrammed out, and people were drinking and chanting USA and doing the I Believe We Can Win chant, and I feel like we really might have achieved something in this country with soccer. We got to a really good place with at least the communal patriotic thing.
Yeah, and
it's as good as it's ever been.
And you saw people beyond just chanting and stuff like that. You saw people chant like applauding the defense clearing a ball, or like applauding if we got a yellow on the like a Belgian player got a yellow card, like little more minutia parts of the game that, maybe 8-10 years ago, if you were in a sports bar, nobody would be noticing, like those kinds of things that you see get applauded at Premier League games and La Liga games because a team does a nice job of holding onto the ball or cleaning up in defense. And to see people like loudly applauding Jeff Cameron clearing a ball, it was really cool.
Yeah, the general sophistication, the collective sophistication has gone way up, because you think like 2002 was the first time we had the World Cup, like in the modern internet era, even though you didn't have Twitter and things like that back then. And you didn't really have sports blogs either. But like, I remember I got up, there's some column in my ESPN.com archives are getting up at 5 a.m. because we played Korea. But
yeah,
it was just like people were talking about it. People were writing about it. People were talking about it on sports radio. But the dialogue was still a lot of stuff like, why don't they get rid of offsides?
Yeah.
Why don't they just get rid of it? And these penalty kicks, what can we do to fix? Like, it was a lot of like people who kind of liked it, but were also trying to fix it in the most American way possible.
Right. It's like you're trying to fix the most popular thing in the world.
Right. And then over the next 10 years, I think like those conversations never happen anymore. And even the conversations that really dominated, I think, in 2006 and 2010 to a lesser extent, were like what athletes from our real sports that, the sports that we're actually really good at would have been awesome in the World Cup. You don't even really hear that anymore.
No, I think that even when people are struggling to find the vocabulary to talk about, like if a general sports fan watches Bradley and they're just like, I feel like he sucks, like, but he doesn't. I know he doesn't suck. Why is he sucking? Like you can feel them grappling to like come to terms with like understanding why Michael Bradley might have been having a tough time, or like what value he offers, even if he was playing poorly in some games. And that kind of curiosity and that sort of genuine engagement with the sport was probably like the most, it was almost more incredible than the run that the team made, to see people being like, oh, we got to start like going up the wings more. Like, even if they don't watch Premier League, don't watch MLS.
Yeah.
To see them engage, to see people generally engaging was really awesome.
Yeah, it definitely was very soccer momish. We talked about that a little last week. You give up that. I think people, maybe it's the patriotic thing. Maybe it's like just they don't totally understand soccer yet. But, Bradley really underperformed for him those first 3 games. He was much better yesterday. But, I think there's like a hesitation to just crush somebody. Like if Russell Westbrook has a bad game in the playoffs, he gets annihilated for the next 18 hours.
Yeah.
And that wasn't happening with Bradley. And even Wando today, in another universe or another sport, I think would have been much more of a scapegoat. But there's that soccer mom mentality. The biggest example was the Portugal giving up that goal with 30 seconds left.
I mean, I think there's a little bit of that way we talk about the Olympics still there, where it's like you never get up the next morning and call sports radio to talk about how garbage our javelin thrower was.
Right.
It's just like, you're like, well, he made it to the Olympics. Pretty good job there, And I think we're right on the edge of getting past that. I mean, if you read the English press about the England team, and actually a lot of like the English press was watching that American team and being like, I'd cut my hand off to have these guys playing for England because they at least are trying.
Right.
These teams are under a ton of scrutiny. A lot of these guys, as like their legacies or whatever, are up for grabs every 4 years. We still have a little bit of like, well, you gave it your best shot. And I think that as long as we can maintain like the sort of just awe-inspiring general enthusiasm people have for this team, with like increased education about the game and just sort of understanding how to talk about it, it's just going to grow and grow. And I think it's just like, there's all these debates going on right now. Like, should these guys stay in MLS? Should they go to Europe and play in the best leagues? And I think just all of it doesn't have to be either or. Like, I just think that the more soccer people are watching, the better. And the more leagues people are watching, the more familiar people are getting with the game, the better.
It did make me wish that the other sports were treated like we treated the World Cup these past 2 weeks, where there's a curiosity and a sophistication that's not too great yet. And it wasn't just a process of just picking somebody apart the next day, living day to day with the swings. And if somebody had a bad game, they're the worst ever. And if somebody had a good game, they're the best ever. And if a team looks good for a week, they're the best team. And it just wasn't there in the Cup, which I think is one of the reasons so many people enjoyed it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that part of it is that we're not going to be, for a large swath of people who were watching for the last 2 weeks, they're done. They're done until maybe, the next sort of intermediate tournament that comes along, or even until 2018. We think about the Thunder 350 days a year or whatever, and so it's going to naturally go towards like picking apart Scott Brooks's end of game management or whatever, rather than being like, oh, the Thunder really gave it their best.
Right.
That would also make for pretty boring sports media.
Well, but at the same time, though, like when Westbrook had those 2 great steals in the playoffs, it gets kind of glossed over, and I feel like sometimes we don't appreciate this stuff as much because we're so lost in the minutia of it. I know we won't learn any lessons. That stuff's only going to get worse. But speaking of Westbrook, I promised myself I wasn't going to have this conversation on a podcast because it's too cliched.
Okay.
But can we at least agree that he would be the greatest soccer player we've ever produced if he'd just been playing since he was 3? Like, can you imagine anyone better on a soccer field than Russell Westbrook?
Russell Westbrook as like the left fullback across the field from Yedlin?
That's anything.
Why even go? They shouldn't even have
position.
Russia. Yeah. I mean, they should just let him play.
It's like the old thing they said about why Michael Jordan was the best player ever, because 5 Michael Jordans would beat 5 anyone else's. And now you can make a case 5 LeBron James against 5 Michael Jordans would be an awesome 78
I just think you would have to deal with the reality that there would definitely be we're in the quarterfinals. 3 minutes in, Russell Westbrook goes cleats up on some guy's
gets
calf,
kicked out. Red card.
We're down a man for 88 minutes.
I feel like 11 Russell Westbrooks on a soccer field would beat 11 any other American athlete we could produce. But that's what I would love to see over the next 8 years. I want to see it at some point in my life. Some just incredible American athlete who would have been one of the 12 best basketball players, who would have been one of the 12 best football players, who would have been a potential Triple Crown winner in baseball.
Well, don't you think that conventional wisdom would suggest that given the way football is trending in terms of like the damage it does to your body, that 10 of these guys who might have played football are going to play soccer because somebody gets in their ear and says like you can do this and not have like life-altering injuries?
There's a real chance. It's only takes we need 3 guys.
Yeah.
You need 1 Calvin Johnson, and you need 1 Kyle Lowry, and you need, I don't know, one QB, one guy who would normally be a QB, but is instead in the middle of the field as the Michael Bradley guy.
I don't want to overinflate expectations for him, and I don't necessarily think this is particularly likely for this summer, but there was a bunch of people on Twitter from The Guardian and like some of the English papers just sort of taking note of Yedlin yesterday and being like, well, he would look good in a Aston Villa uniform or whatever. There's a couple of just people like I know a couple of teams who need a right back who just like perked up when they watched this.
Right.
And I would be really curious to see the American reaction if Yedlin goes for a few million, like, oh, wait. And then he gets on like 60,000 euros a week at some club. That would be an eye opener, I think, because usually the matriculation from the American soccer complex industry over to Europe is a little bit slower. I don't think there's ever been like a huge Altidore buy, but if Yedlin gets bought off the Sounders soon for a big fee, I think that would be pretty eye grabbing for a lot of people who are like great athletes and thinking about soccer. I mean, I can only imagine.
And one of my friends, Jay, I mentioned earlier, emailed me. Yedlin is going to make $92,000 in the Sounders this year. So I would say it's reasonable to think he's going to get poached in the next 2 months.
Yeah.
Would be my guess. And that money goes to the Sounders, right? The transfer fee?
Yeah. That's how the clubs work.
So
and
that's
then
kind of what
he'll be on much more improved wages if he goes to a big European club.
That's kind of why we formed the MLS. One of the reasons was to develop young players, and if we develop any fantastic ones, they get bought overseas and
yeah,
whatever.
I mean, there's always this sort of 2-lane highway going with the MLS of guys coming back because to help grow the game versus guys leaving to help grow their own games and what that does for the U.S. And there's so much debate about that. I mean, you had Michael Bradley come back from a fairly successful stint in Europe to play for Toronto before the Cup. And I think that, there's always just more and more money coming into MLS. It's just a question of whether or not guys like Yedlin can be compensated fairly in the system currently in place for MLS. And I think he probably could become a better player and be definitely better paid if he goes to even like Portugal or Germany.
We have 2 minutes left, so quickly.
Yeah.
Brazil plus 300, Germany plus 400, Argentina plus 450, Netherlands plus 500. Everybody else is a little bit more of a long shot. 8 teams left. Who do you like?
I am until otherwise. I really like just think that the home team wins here, but I would go for Colombia. I know Colombia's playing Brazil Saturday, but Colombia looks like the most confident team I've seen the entire Cup. They're definitely the most exciting. They have the best player in form right now, probably with the exception of Messi and James Rodriguez. And I think that Brazil's look really shaky. They are playing the home field advantage can't be discounted for them. But if another team wins, I think it's going to be a South American team, and I think it could be Colombia.
Should mention you gave me and cousin Sal Chile, which we got at 30-1, and France at 22-1. France still alive, down to 8-1.
Chile was 5 inches away from beating Brazil that day.
Top goal scorer?
Yep.
Messi is plus 250. James Rodriguez from Colombia plus 275. Neymar is plus 350, and Thomas Mueller
is Benzema on there?
Plus 450. Where is he? Yeah, he's from France, plus 1,400.
Benzema, if you were looking for a long shot.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
We could throw that into our France 22-1.
That's right.
God, I hate rooting for France. We deserve to lose in the finals.
They have my favorite player
France
right now, Pogba. Paul Pogba is the midfielder. So if you're looking for people to cheer for, I think Colombia and France are the two most fun teams left.
Well, you've done a terrific job with our soccer coverage, which I think has been first class. Thanks for everything you're doing. Look forward to reading you and the rest of the staff the rest of the way and watching some of these games with you.
Thanks, man.
All right. Talk to you soon.
Take care.
So I get % off. Whoa.
Thank you for downloading the BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Too much fun.
Check out more podcasts at the iTunes Music Store or at Podcenter at ESPNradio.com.
Peace out.
Gotta say, Gola, great call on grabbing Subway for lunch and getting guacamole on our subs.
Told you this new guac really amps up the flavor.
Yep, something adding up things can be great. Guacamole on your sub, a new co-host to replace you.
What was that?
Oh, no, nothing.
Subway now has deliciously rich new guacamole made from ripe Hass avocados with just a hint of garlic, onion, and jalapeno. Discover how new guacamole turns up the flavor on any of your freshly made favorites. Subway, eat fresh.